Okay, so what we're looking at here is the document that's the common terms for some metabolic processes in the body. So here are the terms that you want to know and their descriptions. And so just to hone in on a few things here, first off, the term, the suffix lysis. Lysis means to split. So anytime you see lysis, that's going to mean to split a molecule. Genesis means to build, or it means the creation of or the beginning, so building will work for that description. So up at this top term again right here, glycolysis. Glycolysis is the process of taking glucose and splitting it into pyruvate. So, and here you've got the process, conversion of glucose into 2 molecules of pyruvate or pyruvic acid. It's the first step in cellular respiration, both aerobic and anaerobic metabolism. So glycolysis, glyco is glucose, lysis is to split. So you're going to split glucose into pyruvate. The next term is glycogenesis. So this is the production of glycogen. It occurs mostly in skeletal muscles and in the liver. So we're going to take glucose and we're going to convert it into glycogen for storage. Because remember, so this is glycogenesis. Glucose is a monosaccharide and glycogen is a polysaccharide. So we're going to store our monosaccharides in the form of a polysaccharide because glycogen is a big, bulky molecule. And so we're able to store it in our cells. And again, the cells that we typically store glycogen in will be skeletal muscles and liver. The next term you see there, glycogenolysis, since you have lysis at the end, that means we're going to split something down. Since it's glycogenolysis, what we're splitting is glycogen. So this is hydrolysis, or the breakdown of glycogen to yield glucose. So that's what we will do in our body when our cells need glucose. If we haven't recently brought glucose in through our diet, our cells will take the stored glycogen and split it into glucose. So that's the first bullet you see there. It says glycogen is going to be converted into glucose. So we're releasing our glucose stores. We're going to use that for energy. This occurs in the fasted state metabolism. So we're going to be looking at the fed state versus the fasted state when we're looking at our metabolism and nutrition unit in lecture. So in the fasted state, what you want to think of the fasted is that we're between meals, we've not eaten. So we don't readily have glucose available, so what we will do is we'll split glycogen to release glucose when we're in that fasted state. The next term you see there is gluconeogenesis. So at the end of that word you see genesis, which means the building or creation of, and the beginning of that word says gluco. So that's glucose. So the definition for this term, you want to commit this definition to memory. This definition is, right here, the production of glucose from a non-carbohydrate molecule, including lactic acid and amino acids. It does occur primarily in the liver. So this will also occur in the fasted state. When we're between meals, the body will start to produce its own glucose. So it occurs during the fasted state metabolism and or under the influence of certain hormones like cortisol. We're going to find in the endocrine system that cortisol will stimulate gluconeogenesis. Okay, the next term you see there is lipogenesis. So lipo is lipid, right? Genesis is the creation of or building. So we're going to build some lipids now. So that's our description. It's the formation of triglycerides, which are neutral fats, primarily in adipose tissue and in the liver. So what happens here is excess fatty acids and glucose and amino acids can all be converted to fat or triglycerides for storage during the fed state metabolism. So in the fed, so just look at that word, fed state. That means we're fed. That means we're eating. We're not hungry. We're not starving. We have plenty of nutrients around. So when we have brought in more nutrients than what we need to actually build materials or use for energy, then what we do is we store them. And the easiest way for us to store it is to convert it into fat. So fatty acids, glucose, amino acids will all be converted to fat for storage if we have an abundance of those biological molecules. And that will occur again during that fed state metabolism when we're fed. Okay, and then we have lipolysis. So again, lipo is lipid, lysis is to split or to break down. So this is the hydrolysis or breakdown of the triglyceride. So again, what a triglyceride is a neutral fat. You know, those are the fats that we ingest in our diet. So we're going to break those fats down, and those fats are primarily stored in adipose tissue. We'll break those down to release the fatty acids to burn for energy. So this is going to occur during the fasted state. So this is when we are between meals. Again, we've not eaten, we've not brought in biological molecules. So we need to split the ones that we've stored. So we will split those lipids and release fatty acids to, again, use for the production of energy. The last term we have here is ketogenesis. So keto, we're talking about ketones. Genesis, again, the production of. So ketogenesis is the formation of ketone bodies. Ketone bodies are 4 carbon-long organic acids. And so that's kind of a significant thing here, because oftentimes you'll hear of ketoacidosis, and that's when you have a really high accumulation of ketones, because ketones are acids, and they will lower the pH of the bloodstream when they accumulate. So under ketogenesis, we're going to form ketone bodies from fatty acids, and this occurs in the liver. So we produce these when we're breaking down fatty acids to produce for energy. It's a process called beta oxidation that we've talked about in a previous PowerPoint. When we undergo beta oxidation, we are splitting those fatty acids into 2 carbon acetyl groups. That's called beta oxidation, and that will generate these ketones. So our top bullet, this happens when we break down fats for energy. If they are produced faster than the cell can utilize them, the excess ketones enter the bloodstream, causing ketosis. Now, ketosis is kind of a normal process, not necessarily harmful. But if those ketones build up to too high a degree, then it's called ketoacidosis, and that is a harmful condition, because once we start to lower the pH of the bloodstream, we start denaturing proteins, which will then lead to a host of other issues. So the second bullet says ketone bodies do become a significant source of energy for the brain in cases of prolonged starvation. So on our other document that we looked at that was called How We Metabolize Our Other Biological Molecules, we said that the brain primarily uses glucose for energy. However, when we are starving, the brain can switch over and can metabolize ketones. So the brain can burn 2 things. The brain can burn glucose and ketones. It prefers to burn glucose, but in a pinch, it will burn ketones if ketones are present. Okay, so you do want to be familiar with all of these terms in this document that you have. You've heard a pronunciation and a description of those. Okay, please let me know if you have any questions.